Welcome back to another episode of Highlighted, the All Sports Culture Podcast. We're back. It's been a while. I feel like it's been probably like a month, low key, at least a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't made one since the draft.
Yeah, which also wasn't uploaded on time. We
It was
fined
uploaded
Curtis for
3
that.
weeks late.
Give him a slap on the wrist. But we're back. Curtis is not here. He's busy. I think he's maybe working right now or something. Yeah,
imagine doing anything other than AFC.
Yeah, I mean, how is
our
this
lives.
not your full-time job?
We literally just do it.
Yeah, me and Sam, we're back. Let's talk about the NBA a little bit. Obviously, we're deep into the playoffs here. Finals are going to be starting, next week, which is
Thursday,
pretty high.
I think, yeah.
Thursday. Golden State, Boston is pretty crazy, but obviously we'll talk about the finals, but let's talk about, these other matchups that happened earlier rounds. A lot of them we won't have much to say. Miami, Atlanta, nothing crazy when happened, but a couple of these, maybe we'll have some things to say about a couple teams here and there, but let's start it off. Round one in the West, 1 versus 8, Phoenix versus the Pelicans. It's actually a pretty good series. This turned out to be. The Pelicans were fighting, man. CJ McCollum, decent pickup for the Pelicans, man. He was kind of balling. Brandon Ingram is very talented. We knew that. But I mean, Phoenix took it down 4-2. Do you have anything crazy to say about it?
No, but I do have to say the Pelicans winning the play-in and getting into the postseason. I mean, we had 2 situations in this playoffs where the lower seed got in the play-in. Because you saw the Pelicans get in. They won 2 games in a row. They beat the Spurs and the Clippers. And the Clippers were the 8th seed. And
the Clippers got fucked.
Yeah, the Clippers, I mean, them just not having Kawhi and then PG obviously not playing that game also really screwed them. But they'll be back. But then also you had Atlanta make the play-in, beating the Hornets and the Cavs, I believe. And Cleveland just completely falls out of the playoffs, which is actually crazy because they were like the 4 seed for so long. But yeah, the Pelicans, I mean, they didn't have Zion, which says a lot about this team because they have turned around their season. I mean, they were probably the most fun 36-40 whatever team I've seen in the postseason. A lot of these games were close. These were not those 4 wins by Phoenix were not blowouts. I mean, one of those wins by the Pelicans, they probably shouldn't have gotten, but there was probably one in there that they should have gotten back. So you started to see some of the cracks in the Suns early on because they didn't handle business with the Pelicans that easily. The Pelicans were giving them fits, and guys like Herbert Jones and Jose Alvarado were just so much fun to watch. And then obviously CJ McCollum was hooping, and this team is going to be good in the future. And I know a lot of people are focusing on the East and how great the East was this past year and how much better it was than the West, which I agree with. But long term, I think the West is in a really good spot because there's a lot of teams that are up and coming and going to be good. Whereas the East has a lot of older teams that I think are going to fall off. And there's not a lot of up and coming teams that are truly taking that next step into contending other than maybe the Celtics. And the Pelicans, I think, are one of those teams, and they don't even have Zion. And I want to see how Zion gets into this team.
Well, Zion's going to the Knicks.
Oh, yeah, of course. Along with Donovan Mitchell, right?
I'll be done.
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of saw the cracks in Phoenix, and I'm sure we'll talk more about the Suns because yikes.
Yeah, they got peppered.
They did get peppered.
2-7 in the West. Memphis, Minnesota. This was a really good series.
It was.
Obviously, Memphis wins it. Ja got hurt in Golden State, right?
Yes.
He got hurt in game 2 or wherever it was. Yeah. I mean, Ja had a couple bad games in this series, and he also had a couple really good games. Same with Cat. Cat also had some really good games, and he had some really bad games. And my biggest takeaway from this is I like Minnesota going forward. I think Anthony Edwards is an incredible player. He is the definition of like a bucket. He kind of reminds me of, he's kind of like, I was gonna say Jason Tatum, but Tatum's a very complete player now. But Edwards is a bucket, Tatum's a bucket. Kind of Devin Booker a little bit reminds me of, maybe that's a better comparison. And I think D'Angelo Russell, Edwards, and Cat, it's a pretty good trio going forward. Russell's, he kind of fell off the map low key. Like he's just like not talked about anymore. He brought that Nets team to the playoffs and he was like hot commodity, and now he's kind of just disappeared. But he's still a decent player. But Memphis, I kind of want to say they're like I don't think they're going to be back, in my opinion. Like I think that they're going to be good. I think they're going to be good. Like Desmond Bane's really, really good. Jaren Jackson's been solid. Obviously, they're still all very young. Ja's very young, getting better. I don't think that they'll be back in terms of like they'll still be good, and in the future they could make a playoff run. But like as a 2 seed, I don't see them being a top 3 seed next year.
Interesting. So you're envisioning like Golden State, Phoenix.
We'll see what Dallas can do. Clippers, when they get PG, Kawhi back, are a better team. I think we'll see what Dallas does in the offseason. Denver, if they have Jamal Murray, is a top 4 seed, probably the 4th seed. I think, I don't know. Memphis is one of those teams that's super young, and they tried very hard every single night in the regular season. They didn't rest. They went balls to the wall. And a lot of young teams do that in the regular season. And they still performed decent in the playoffs. It wasn't like they were horrible.
They are an incredibly coached team. And I want to bring up that Memphis easily could have won that Warriors series. We'll touch on it later. But they lost Ja Morant. But those, I think 3 or 4 games leading up to Ja being out, they blew 3 of those games. They should have won multiple of those games. I think it was game 3 that they completely just shit the bed in that they should have won, but they didn't. That whole Memphis is a good team, Sully. I'm not saying you're an idiot and thinking they won't be back, but I think you're underestimating them a lot. I think this team has a lot of assets, and I think they have a lot of talent where if they wanted to go all in and get the next guy to put next to Ja Morant, because I know we're kind of looking at this team, we're like, oh, it's Ja and a lot of really great players around him. But we've talked about this with Dallas, where you have one really excellent number 1 option, but everyone around them is the number 4 option on a really good team, but they're not a number 2 on any other contending team.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Dallas was this year. It was a lot of number 4s and a lot of number 5s around Luka. That's kind of the same thing for Memphis.
I think Memphis is a little better though.
I agree. And they're
Bane and Jackson are better than, Brunson's pretty good, but Bane and Jackson are better than anyone on the Mavs.
I agree. I definitely agree with you on that. And I think they're a better coach team as well. And they just played their hearts out.
You just don't like Jason Kidd.
Well, I don't. But that doesn't. I still.
He's actually not as bad as people.
I'm going to give Jason Kidd his credit when we get to that series. But Memphis, they're up and coming, and I think they are going to be good. And my point was that if they wanted to go out and get, I don't know, whoever comes available, because this is the NBA and everyone becomes available at some point. They are one of the top teams that can make a push for someone. Actually, I completely thought I forgot about Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson is a good number 2 or 3 option.
He's number 3.
Probably a great number 3. And he's definitely young, but he's got some stuff to fix up. But this series was a lot of fun. This was probably one of the playoff series that didn't involve the Bucks that I watched the most, because it was just 2 really young teams that are up and coming, like I was referring to with the Pelicans, just going at it and throwing haymakers at each other. And it was a blast. And you're already seeing team like the Timberwolves go out and get this top executive from the Nuggets and steal them so that they can push to go even harder. I mean, the West is going to be so interesting next year because you see these 8 teams, Sully, these 8 teams in the West that just made the playoffs. How many of these teams do you think can make the playoffs again next year?
I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen with Utah. I think Utah might have a big shakeup this offseason, but for me to predict any of them falling out would be hard.
And the thing is, you have to acknowledge that the Lakers might be better.
Yeah.
The Clippers are going to be back. I'm more confident in the Clippers, just a note. And you never know. Like, fucking Kings could be amazing. Who knows? But there's at least, I'm joking. There's at least 2 teams that could definitely get in the mix here. And we'll have to wait and see. But it was a lot of fun. Now, this series is great. Yeah. Memphis is balling. Timberwolves. You're right. Anthony Edwards is.
I love Anthony Edwards.
He's awesome. He's gonna be a Nick with Donovan Mitchell and Zion at once.
Anthony Edwards and Zion would be incredible. 3-6 Golden State, Denver. Not much to say here. It was kind of just mostly Golden State.
I'm fine with not talking about it at all.
I mean, the only thing is to say I know Jokic got a lot of heat for this series. Like, people were saying he wasn't playing like an MVP or whatever. I thought he played fine. There wasn't really much he could do. Golden State is obviously they're in the finals now. They've been one of the best teams.
I want to ask you this though. Jokic wins MVP. You cool with that?
Like, who has a 6 seed winning MVP? I know there's a lot of hate about that. I mean, yeah, it's all about, context. You got to think about it. I mean, statistically, had one of the best seasons in the NBA out of anyone. A 6 seed with that team. They had a lot of injuries. Obviously, not even just Jamal Murray missed the entire year. Michael Porter Jr. missed the year. Some other guys were, out for a little bit. I think it's fine to give it to him, honestly. I mean, who would you have given it to? Like Joel Embiid?
No, Jokic. I would have given it to Jokic.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I just know you with your resident Jokic fandom. I mean, we're Jokic that. Fans on this podcast.
Yeah,
I mean, last year we all were very early on the Jokic MVP train while everyone was talking about.
I've been on that for like Embiid. 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I was just a nice little point of conversation. And I literally last year I was like, the Nuggets will win the NBA Finals if everyone's healthy. But then Jamal Murray got hurt, and then that kind of derailed my prediction there. I still believe in the Nuggets. I'm still picky them probably to win the West next year. Not even kidding. If their guys look healthy right out the gate. And then we got Dallas and Utah. We could just talk about Utah being a mess.
Yeah.
You want to touch on that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot of, reports, chemistry issues with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. We've seen it. You kind of see it on the court. You don't even need to hear like reports. I mean, Rudy Gobert is an interesting player to me because he's obviously incredible on defense and, he's valued, pretty highly. But at the same time, it's like, are you going to pay a guy, a max contract and he takes 3 shots a game? I mean, I understand maybe it's your system, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, you look at the scorecard for these games and like Rudy Gobert literally has like 3 shots in like half the games and it's like the 4th quarter. And it's like, all right, I mean, Donovan Mitchell, and then you usually look at Donovan Mitchell, he's usually shooting like 40%. Like, he's just kind of an inefficient scorer, but he's also a bucket. I don't hate Donovan Mitchell. A lot of people give him flack. I would want him on my team because I think at the end of the day, like, you need someone like Tatum, you need someone like Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, who can just kind of go get you a bucket whenever you need one. And that's kind of who he is. I would value Donovan Mitchell over Rudy Gobert. I don't think that's unpopular opinion, but maybe in the AFC chat.
Unpopular. It is a little unpopular.
Maybe. I don't know.
It really just depends on who you ask.
I think it depends on your team also. Like, who
that
else
too.
You have, but
I mean, this is 2 years in a row where Rudy Gobert has gotten played off the floor in the playoffs. Last year against the Clippers, he was virtually useless because the Clippers just went small the entire series and shot threes and won that series based off that. because they have all those guys that could just put up a shot and make it from the arc. And Rudy Gobert, he can't go further out. I mean, he's the best defensive player in the NBA, but he has his limitations in some ways. But he is the defensive player of the year candidate every single year because of how he plays the rim. And then obviously you have this year where they played Dallas, and Dallas is literally the worst matchup possible for Utah, I think, at this first round. I mean, like I said with the Clippers just then, you could put that on Dallas. You literally can just say the same thing for Dallas. Dallas has so many options to go small with, and then they have obviously the best player in the series. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is not a perfect player by any means. As a defensive player, he's not good. He's kind of spotty with his shot. Mike Conley hasn't been the same as of late. And the Jazz's depth have just gone out the window in recent years. Last year, they were praised for their depth. And that's what got them the 1 seed. They were the 1 seed last year, I believe. And that all just went to shit this year.
Ingles tore his ACL, right?
Yeah, and then they traded him for
didn't they trade him the day towards ACL or something?
Yeah, they traded him like right after he tore it. And then they traded him for like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who did nothing for them. So it's just a lot of very odd decisions by the Jazz. And obviously we're hearing all this chemistry issues. And I don't know where it's going to go, because I personally think Utah they're so limited in what they can do now with their team if they can get better. And I don't know an avenue for them that can clearly get them better, because I think Donovan Mitchell as a player has a very defined ceiling as the 12th best player in the NBA as a ceiling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not ever going to be a top 10 player, but he's going to be a good player.
Yeah.
He's probably more a number 2 on a championship team than a number 1. But then you have Rudy Gobert, who obviously is elite defensively, and offensively, they don't use him. They don't even try and use him. I saw the stat with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert passing, and they barely interact with each other. It's like they're completely on other islands. So I personally think this team will get broken up eventually. I don't know if it'll be this year. It's really going to be interesting to see if it happens this year. I'd probably not, but I personally think they'll prioritize Mitchell over Gobert. I don't know about you.
I agree.
But they have him locked up for a multi-year deal. I mean, they also do that for Rudy Gobert, but Rudy Gobert is more valuable to I don't know if I should say that, though. What team is going to trade a lot for Rudy Gobert? I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. The Warriors, maybe? Because they can.
Celtics should.
No, the Celtics have Robert Williams, who's perfect for them. Yeah. I don't know who's going to line up the Brinks truck of their assets for Rudy Gobert. Maybe Dallas, but I don't know. I like how Dallas plays with Luka right now. So it's just weird. The whole situation is weird. So I don't know. Do you think they get broken up this offseason, or do you think it's going to be
I don't know if it's this offseason, but it's definitely soon, because they continuously lose in the playoffs and not able to get very far after having very good regular seasons. So it's got to be frustrating for them, and they got to do something.
Yeah.
It's similar to the Sixers situation a little bit. It's similar to Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons.
Oh, well,
that's kind of what I would compare it to.
We'll talk about the Sixers later. I got a lot to say about the Sixers. I fucking love ripping on the Sixers. All right, Miami, Atlanta. I got nothing to say about this. The better team won the series.
Yeah.
Atlanta just had a disappointing year. I don't know. You got anything to say?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Philly, Toronto, or do you want to do Boston?
Yeah,
we did 2-7. We did 2-7.
Boston, Brooklyn. I mean, these games were very close. This kind of seemed like a finals, low key. It was a very high pressure first round matchup, and it was a sweep, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it was. People are giving KD. I'm going to talk about the next series. I'm going to couple these together. We'll talk about Boston and Milwaukee in more depth, but people gave KD a lot of shit in this series because he didn't shoot well. Giannis shot worse than KD did. And Giannis obviously takes his shots closer to the rim, whatever. Like Giannis had a better field goal percentage in the regular season than KD did. So I don't know if it was exactly field goal percentage, but I know their true shooting percentage.
I will fact check this while you do this.
I 81% sure that Giannis shot a little bit worse true shooting or maybe just flat field goal percentage than KD did. And like I said, people gave KD a lot of shit and he didn't play well at the same time, but Boston's defense is unbelievable. Like it's not, if I wouldn't put it too much on KD compared to the fact that Boston is just playing really, really well, especially as a team and individually. But yeah, people said Kyrie was better in this series. Kyrie had some really bad games, some games where he just didn't really do anything. And obviously he's not a crazy playmaker. So he obviously wasn't, dishing it out too much. But yeah, Boston, it was more so just Boston playing well than Brooklyn playing horrible, in my opinion, because, the games were close.
I will say you're wrong.
No.
Straight up wrong.
I saw a graphic on like SportsCenter or something.
Kevin Durant averaged 26, 6, and 6 on 38% from the field on 21 field goal attempts a game, 33% from three. Giannis averaged 34, 15, and 7.
I didn't say he played worse. I said he
shot worse. Giannis had a 46% from the field and a 25% from three.
I should true shooting percentage. I'm telling you.
I'm trying to find true shooting.
I don't know how you
find it.
I'm on
StatMuse. But we can agree Giannis was the better player.
Oh yeah,
he was the better player in this.
Giannis is the best player in the league.
Yes, we'll get to Giannis later. But Kevin Durant. He didn't play well. Like we can agree on that. He did not play well in his series.
No, he didn't play well. But I think the Celtics played very good. Their defense is incredible. Nice slap.
There's a fly. And he's still fucking here. But yes, I agree. I picked the Celtics to win this series in 5. And I said that a lot to a couple different people in my life.
I think I picked the Nets at 7.
Yeah, you're crazy. I picked the Celtics in 5, and I did that on this podcast. And James fucking put Celtics in 7 for me when I said 5. And he's like, "Oh,
James sucks."
I was boasting in chat that I was right that the Celtics would dominate the Nets. And he's like, "You put him 7," and I'm like, "No, I didn't." He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." But honestly, I just saw the Celtics just dominating. The Nets' depth is awful. It has been bad this whole year. The Nets, the entire season, have been just up and down the whole way. Obviously, there was that one stretch where they lost like 9 games in a row. The Kyrie Irving situation, the James Harden situation, Kevin Durant's injury, just a lot of stuff. And then obviously you don't get Ben Simmons for this series, which, that doesn't help their case at all. Even though Kyrie Irving came back and he played well, like he had a good series, he probably was the better player between him and Kevin Durant, but Jason Tatum was the best player on the floor in the series. And Jason Tatum, we'll get to Jason Tatum, but throughout this playoffs, he has really stamped his name in the top 10 conversation, I believe. And he will have a lot of accolades coming his way soon. And it's just the Nets I think Kevin Durant knew that this wasn't the Nets year, just all season. Going into this series, he didn't sound confident. And just with all the stuff that was going around the team. And I don't know how they're going to bounce back because this Nets team, like last year, in the little games that James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant played in, they looked unstoppable. And all of that just crumbled in such a short amount of time. Are they truly the biggest what if team in NBA history? Because they might be.
James Harden,
Kevin Durant, and Kyrie. I think they won the finals last year if they don't get hurt against the Bucks. Personally, I think they just cruise to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely up there because I mean, right when they formed, everyone was like, "This is so stupid."
Well, then also, if they won the finals last year, that team doesn't break up this year. James Harden doesn't go. I mean, you could argue James Harden still falls off, but you still got KD and Kyrie to take a lot of load off of him. So you don't really know how that'll end up. And this team is so weird. And honestly, I have no idea where this team is going to head because Ben Simmons there was talk that he would play. Then he didn't play.
Ben Simmons is supposed to.
And then it was said that he was going to play in game 4. And then the Nets were down 3-0. And he's like, oh, no, I'm actually not going to play.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? And then it comes out that he needs back surgery just randomly. Like,
yeah,
the whole situation, the Nets are just weird. They're just so weird. And I have no idea what to make of their future. Because now there's already talk that Kyrie might not be re-signed by the team because they don't want to deal with his all the bullshit he brings up for them, I guess, and things like that. And then apparently KD won't be happy if Kyrie isn't there. I don't know, dude. This team is weird. They were obviously going to lose this series because the Celtics were just a better team. You're stupid for picking the Nets. That's all I got to say to you.
Yeah, that happens, man. I wasn't a believer in the Celtics, but
you should have been.
Yeah,
they should have been. You could have looked smart like me. You could have looked smart like me.
They proved me wrong. 3-6, Milwaukee, Chicago. Not much to say. Chicago just didn't play well. They just,
No, they let Grayson Allen beat them. And Chris Middleton wasn't in this series, and they let the Chris Middleton injury not help them at all. They lost literally every game.
DeMar gets a lot of shit for this series. Like one good game, one really good game. But other than that, it was really bad. But, I think Levine should get just as much shit. He played bad. And I know he's definitely going to get a max contract. Someone's going to throw that at him. And I don't know, man. He's a weird.
Yeah, we don't know what's
going to
happen.
They throw max contracts at everyone, man.
Well, I mean,
he's a good player. He's not bad, but it's like, I don't know. It's like
what
it's never done it.
I'm going to ask you this: what tier of player, like, who is the worst player that you would give a max contract to in the NBA?
I don't know. It's
because like
maybe Levine.
Because the thing is, like, you're thinking, like, I'm like looking through Tatum. Yes. Would you give Jaylen Brown a max?
I wouldn't want to, but yeah, you have to.
I mean, KD and Kyrie, yes. I mean, Giannis, yes. Chris Middleton, probably not, but you have to.
I think I'd take Chris Middleton over Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
You wouldn't?
No, I would because I'm a homer, but
I don't know. I feel like that shouldn't be much of a conversation.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying, so you would rank like Zach LaVine in like the late 20s of best players? That means you would give 30 players a max contract in the NBA. And there's still a bunch of players in the NBA that I think are going to get max contracts soon.
Well, I wouldn't want to give them one, but I feel like someone will. So it's like, I don't know.
Well, the Supermax is becoming a lot more common now.
Yeah, because everyone just fucking picks where they want to play. When they're like, all right, I'm going to sign a Supermax. And then the year in, they're like, all right, I don't feel like playing for this team anymore. Trade me. Like, it's so stupid.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Zach LaVine, his situation is odd because, like, for years now, like, Chicago could have signed him to an extension. They could have done it last year, and that didn't happen. And now there's already rumors that he might not return.
I mean, he's never been on a successful team.
He hasn't. This is the first time he's made the playoffs.
Yeah. And he wasn't good.
He was not good. But he was also on a team that was clearly not going to do anything that well.
But they also kind of went all in.
They did, which is even the weirder part because they have so many offensive options that play no defense. And then you could see the cracks with this team from the get-go. And I think when we did our pre-prediction or pre season pod where we predicted, I think we all had the Bulls like late in the conference, like 6 through 8, around that range. And look who's right. Us. Because we're the best.
We all had them 6. I think we had Milwaukee 3, Boston 2, Brooklyn 7.
Yeah.
We had all that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I totally didn't have Atlanta number 2. Totally didn't have
that's embarrassing.
That is embarrassing. I will admit that. That's very embarrassing.
Let's talk about Philadelphia and Toronto.
A lot of people were picking Toronto for the series.
I don't think I picked Toronto.
You picked Toronto?
I don't think I did.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure I picked Philadelphia.
I honestly don't.
I don't like Toronto. I don't think they're good.
Well, I mean, the matchup was what made this series interesting. And there were a couple games where Toronto could have won them, but Philly managed to pull them out. I think game 4 or game 3. Game 3, the first game in Toronto. That one went to overtime, I think. And Joel Embiid hit that crazy 3 to put them up. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Okay, well, that's the game that happened. And then after that game,
didn't watch any of this.
They went up 3-0. They went up 3-0 after that game, and then Toronto won 2 straight. And then they went 3-2, and then Philly won in game 6. So Toronto wins game 3. Series swings differently. It's just Philly got it when they needed it. And Philadelphia, I mean, they didn't have like Matisse Thybulle for a lot of this series, but I mean, he ended up just being a non-factor in the playoffs entirely. But yeah, I mean, they had the best player on the floor. They have one of
the biggest storyline out of this game is the fact that he was in the game with like 3 minutes left, and they were up like 25 points.
Yeah, and he got knocked in the face.
Yeah, and then that lost them the next series. I mean, were they going to win the series? Probably not. But they would have been a fucking good series.
It made them lose their first 2 games outright.
Yeah,
just straight up. And they pulled the D-Rose with the player they know is injury prone.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on James Harden. That guy fucking sucks.
Oh, well, we'll get to him shortly. Yeah. We'll get to him shortly.
He's trash.
He's not good. He's fallen off. And we could talk about the logistics of that trade because it's not looking good for Philly right now.
I mean, it's not looking good for either team.
I mean, Nets got Seth Curry and some picks. That's better for the Nets.
It's definitely better. Just because you don't have to deal with James Harden.
And they got the GOAT, Andre Drummond.
That's true.
Who actually was fairly decent in his minutes in that series.
He's an elite player.
Is he an elite player?
Yeah, I'd give him max.
Is he? Well, the Detroit did that. But I mean, is he as elite? Is he as elite of a center as Joe Flacco as a quarterback?
No one's as elite as Joe Flacco.
There you go.
Joe Flacco.
So that's our answer. That's our answer.
All right. So to the semifinals.
Where are we starting?
We'll go Phoenix, Dallas.
Ooh,
go in the West.
You want to start there?
Yeah,
you want to start with the spicy one? Okay, I'm gonna let you take all of the conversation points in this because this involves a lot of players you like.
Yeah. Why? What else do I like besides Luka? I mean, I love Devin Booker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I know you have some Chris Paul takes as well.
I don't hate Chris Paul. I mean, Luka's incredible. We know how I feel about Luka. He's unbelievable. It was kind of shocking, though. I mean, Dallas winning this series is shocking by itself, but the way it kind of happened is kind of insane, especially for a team like Phoenix, who obviously is the 1 seed, went to the finals last year, has veteran leadership. You wouldn't expect them to get absolutely run out of their own gym in a game 7. But I think Phoenix is an interesting team. Obviously, Chris Paul's getting a little bit older. He's still solid. He's still good. But I think the biggest question mark is DeAndre Ayton on this team. And it's weird because there's been a lot of talks like, is DeAndre Ayton a bust? Because like he's been solid. And like he's going to get a max contract somewhere.
He will always be remembered for being drafted over Luka. And that tag will always be with him, even if he turns out to be a really good player for the rest of his career, which he's a good player. Let's not get it twisted. He's going to get a max contract this offseason. whether or not he's in your top 30, Sully.
Get a max contract at this point.
But he's going to get a max contract offer. I mean, Woj just said that a bunch. Shams has said that already, that he will get a max, whether it is from Phoenix or not. But he's always going to be remembered for being drafted over Luka. And the thing is with that, I still find it fucking unbelievable that the Suns hired Luka's coach from the EuroLeague to be their head coach that offseason. And then they didn't draft Luka.
Yeah.
I thought them hiring that guy just signaled that they were going to draft Luka.
Yeah, that's weird.
But for some reason, they didn't do it.
I think the Mavs are one of the teams. Now, I don't think they're going to do it because they obviously just played against Ayton and they kind of, Ayton didn't do anything. But I think the Mavs would be one of the teams that would be in consideration to give them the max.
There's not a lot of teams with cap space.
I think the Mavs, how much the Mavs aren't going to pay anymore. I mean, they're trying to pay Brunson. Are you going to give Brunson a max?
No, Brunson ain't getting the max, but they'd have to do some meticulous sign and trade to make that work. Oh, I mean,
Mark Cuban said they can give Brunson more money than anyone else.
Well, it's true, but you're not going to.
That would mean they're signing him to the max, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the Bucks can pay Pat Connaughton the whatever amount of money they want. They're not going to pay him the max.
Then they should, maybe.
Well, yeah, he's a GOAT. I mean, he was the second best player on the Bucks in that series. But the thing is, the reason the Suns lost the series is Chris Paul. Chris Paul was not good in a lot of this series. Game 7, especially.
I mean, he's fucking what? He's like 36 years old.
So 37? What? You're paying him a max.
Oh, I know. It's horrible.
We're just going to keep going back to the max conversation in this podcast.
But how much can you really expect from a guy who's 37?
Well, when
the Suns are a deep team, that's kind of their bread and butter. They are like a wealth.
When he's the guy that you made the move for to take you over the top, he is.
I mean, they got the one
have
seed.
Expectations. They had the one,
and they went to the finals last year. The Chris Paul signing worked.
Yeah, it worked.
I wouldn't say it has been bad for the Suns.
No,
they got further than they would have if they did any other move.
Exactly. I agree with you.
All right. We're good.
I don't know why we're acting like I was the one who
you're covering Chris Paul.
I remember right before that offseason, me and Kurt were on this podcast and I said, it'd be great for Chris Paul that no one's talking about. I said the Suns. I remember saying the Suns. And I'm always going to take credit for Chris Paul being a Phoenix Sun because I definitely put that idea into the Suns owner's mind.
Yeah, he listens to the podcast.
Yeah, or whatever his name, Sarver, like the worst owner in the NBA. Yeah, him. But the thing is, Chris Paul just wasn't that good in the series, and I mean, obviously the Suns the whole thing with DeAndre Ayton in Game 7 was very weird. They took him out of the game, and then he refused to go back in. And then there was a little bit of a skirmish on the bench. I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, if the Suns just let him walk, that's horrible. I mean, that's a huge piece of their team that's leaving. Even if he didn't perform to standards, but he still played really well. I mean, last year he was excellent in the postseason. This year he was good also, but you lose him, that's a big deal. And it's just a lot of weird situations with that team. I mean, when the going got tough, they didn't play well. I mean, they got run out of the gym a couple times in this series. And in Game 7, having probably the most embarrassing Game 7 showing I've ever seen in my life at home.
I mean, back-to-back games that got destroyed.
Literally.
113 to 86 was Game 6.
Luka Doncic had 20 points in the first quarter of Game 7. It was unreal.
It was over. He was laughing. He was just hysterically laughing at it.
He was just showing them.
Well, he was fine. He's unbelievable. He had 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists in the series. Those are LeBron numbers. He's
ridiculous. And I think we're just waiting for the day Luka takes over the throne as.
The thing is about Luka, which kind of scares me a little bit because I love him. How much better can he get?
He needs to be athletic.
Yeah, like he's kind of capped, which is not bad because like he's debatably one of the best players in the league.
One of the best.
Like he's fine where he's at. Like if he can't get better, like it's like okay, you're just one of the best players in the league. Like that's all right. But at the same time, he's like,
I mean, the Mavericks won this series off Luka's talent and also their defense. Their trapping defense worked, and it worked very well. And I got to give credit to Jason Kidd here. I fucking hate Jason Kidd as a coach. Just straight up.
Him as a person.
He hurt the Bucks for so many years, and I couldn't get over it. But I thought him on the Mavs was not going to work, and it has worked so far. I still think this team has a clear cap because it's Luka and a bunch of number 4 options, but obviously Luka's good enough to make it work.
Yeah, get this man some help.
Because Jesus Christ, this guy just absolutely just won them a series off being the best player on the floor. And I know there are some Suns fans that Suns fans hate Luka. I don't know if you knew this, but Suns fans absolutely hate Luka because of obviously they drafted Ayton over him. And then also this entire series, they think he was being a bitch the whole series, things like that.
He was kind of being a bitch, but Luka is kind of a bitch. But
he's a little bit of a bitch.
Okay,
I can agree with that. But I don't mind either.
If you're really good, you could be a bitch.
Yeah, and he plays really well in the right way. Like James Harden is a bitch.
No, James Harden's a bitch.
But James Harden is a bitch, but he plays like a bitch too.
Yeah.
Luka doesn't play like a bitch. He is a bitch, but he does not play like a bitch.
As long as you don't play like a bitch, you're good.
Exactly. That's like the point I'm getting at. Like the entire we'll get to the Celtics because a lot of players on the Celtics play like bitches. And I fucking hate that they play like bitches because they don't have to play like bitches. But Luka, he's got that mentality. And I have to, so you brought up that Luka is going to be capped. You think Luka's capped?
I'm worried.
Do you think he'll ever be the best player in the NBA? I think he's already top 5. I think he's clearly
he's always going to be in the conversation.
This postseason has locked him into the top 5.
I think, the fact that Giannis is so young, and I don't think you're ever going to say, like, Luka is better than Giannis. And I also think it's an argument. I think it might be an argument that Luka in, 2 or 3 years might be – it's never going to be a consensus. Someone could say Giannis is better. I'm going to say that's fair. And someone could say Luka is better than Giannis, and I could say that's fair. And I'm sure there'll be other players in that conversation as well. But I don't think it's going to be LeBron. He's not going to be LeBron where it's like LeBron was the best player for 10 years. Like, obviously, that's fucking LeBron. He's like the second best player of all time. That doesn't usually happen. It's rare in the NBA you have a consensus best player for more than like 2 or 3 seasons in a row.
Agreed.
Like even Kobe. Like Kobe's one of the best players of all time. He very rarely was the consensus. Yeah, Tim Duncan. Obviously, LeBron was, he was young when Kobe was in his prime. But
last year, 2019, Kawhi. It was Kawhi. It was like Kawhi or LeBron.
It was like one season and Kawhi disappeared. Yes. It's injuries. But.
And then 2020, it was Kawhi and like LeBron, and that was really it. It was Kawhi and LeBron again.
Yeah.
2020. 2020.
It's funny how we just we'll never mention Jokic in this conversation, and he just wins MVPs.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then 2021.
It's centers, man. They just
Kevin Durant or Giannis.
Yeah.
Or 2019, it was or 2020, it was Giannis, Kawhi, or LeBron. 2021, Kevin Durant or Giannis. 2022, I think 2022 is like the first year in a while where we have a consensus number 1, and it's Giannis. I think most.
Notice how we never say Steph.
Well, okay, you can throw Steph in there for last year, but. This year, I think this is the first time a lot of people have a consensus that Giannis is the best player in the league. But next year, he might not be the consensus anymore. Luka could take the next step. He could get a fucking 6-pack, and then we could be talking about Luka in this conversation. Kevin Durant.
Also, if you put someone next to Luka, who knows? Maybe it's actually just stupid, and they win every game. Because his second star right now is literally Jalen Brunson.
No, it's not Jalen Brunson.
That's the second best player on the Mets. Is it not?
It might be. Reggie Bullock's been a hooper there. Dwight Powell.
I mean,
Dorian Finney-Smith.
Jalen Brunson's better than that.
The thing with the Mavs is they're in a position where they have Luka and all these guys and all these salary fillers, but like I don't know how they can get that next guy because I think
Rudy Gobert might be the answer for the Mavs.
But that also
or DeAndre Ayton, honestly.
The Rudy Gobert, it gets rid of what won them that series against Utah though. When they played with Utah, they played.
You think you add one player and they don't like that? Just like throws
we've seen Rudy Gobert. We've seen Rudy Gobert get played off the floor in series, like in the Clippers.
But like the Mavs, have good team defense. Like
they do, and the Mavs have the ability to go small without Rudy Gobert. But are you going to pay Rudy Gobert to $40 million a year to not play in clutch situations if you need to go small? You would rather have.
That's why I hate Rudy Gobert.
You would rather have Luka Doncic with I don't know, fucking Zach LaVine. I don't know.
Would you want Zach LaVine? Though?
I don't know. I'm just throwing a name out there that's available this offseason.
They need Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that tweet that someone said Klay Thompson, if he was at a number one option on another team, they'd be like the playoffs and be like a contender, which is just no.
They're saying he would be good as a number one option?
Yes. He said he would be a number one option. They would be a contending playoff.
He would not be good as a number one option.
He would not. I agree. He's the perfect number two option.
I see Klay try to create his own shots a lot, and I've rarely ever seen him go in. I mean, Klay's really good.
I
for what he does. Like he's like one of the best. Like you could add Klay to any team, and they get so much better. But it can't be a team like you said. Like it can't just be like a random ass team. Like if you added Klay to the Mavericks, they're finals contenders to me.
Oh, easily, easily.
But like if you add him to, if he's
the number one on a team, they're not gonna make the playoffs.
Exactly,
probably.
But he's like the perfect addition to any
team. He is a
that,
perfect number two. He's a perfect number two.
He's like he's the stereotypical prototype number two. Great defense, great 3-point shooter.
But that number one option needs to be a ball handler, most likely.
Always.
A guy who's going to take a priority with the ball in their hands. Klay can't be your primary.
That's why
I am like the biggest Klay Thompson and Steph Curry dick rider out there from the Good Warriors days. So I will defend them, but that fucking take was terrible. And I'm also someone who thinks Steph Curry's the best point guard of all time. But yeah, the Mavericks, like we agree, they have a ceiling. But the Suns, man, like, do you think this is going to be I asked this last year after the Suns won or the Suns lost.
No, he's done. They're not. I mean, not done, but Chris Paul is not going to the finals again.
Jeez. I personally think his career is a little bit overrated with how much of a choker he is in the playoffs. I think people overrate that a lot, but this series is on him a lot, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about another series.
Golden State, Memphis.
I kind of alluded to it earlier, but Memphis kind of blew like 3 games in this series, and this was winnable for them. Like Golden State did not play well this series. I mean, Jordan Poole was like up and down. Steph Curry didn't play that great. It was like it's a weird series for Golden State, and Memphis was giving them their all, but they would choke away games because they're a young team. And then obviously the John Morant injury happened, and you thought it was over because it was 3-1. And then Memphis just pulls a 50-point win out of their ass out of nowhere without John Morant. And then Golden State takes care of business in Game 6. I really have nothing to say. Golden State's the better team, and the better team won. So I don't know if you have anything to add here.
No, I don't really have anything to say too much.
Do we even want to entertain the conversation that Memphis is better without John Morant, or do we just
no? I mean
over that.
Well, I mean, like statistics show a little bit that they like technically did play a little better without him or whatever, but I still don't believe it. Like you're not better without your best player. I just think they need maybe to, play more together, work on their system a little bit. But he's their best player. So
it's so weird because when he's out for a game, they play so well without him. Like they play incredible without John Morant. But when they're playing a game and then they're resting Ja Morant, the whole team falls apart without Ja Morant on the floor when Ja Morant is active. It's so weird how that works. I guess their rotations just get fucked up or some shit. I don't know. Or they just have a specific game plan and then they go. I don't know. It's really weird how that works.
That is weird. That alone, I mean, kind of just shows it's maybe not really much to it. It's kind of just random. I don't know.
All right. Well, we can touch on the Miami Heat versus the Philadelphia 76ers now.
Yeah.
James Harden's washed.
Yeah, he sucks. I mean, I remember when Jalen Rose, I think that's Jalen Rose, when he was talking about James Harden, when he was like, his fucking shooting numbers look like tour dates. And that's literally so true. I mean, you look at the box score for this guy, James Harden, every single game, it's 4 for 17, 6 for 24. Like, what is this guy doing? It's crazy.
I remember when that trade happened, we were being critical of it for both teams, but we were kind of saying it's a win-win, but we were kind of leaning more Nets. But I remember pre this playoffs, I was like, if the Sixers make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I will eat turds because I don't believe in this team at all. James Harden, like Chris Paul gets the reputation of a bad playoff performer. And some series I can understand that, like the Rockets series in 2014 when they lost, they blew the 3-1 lead. You can kind of give a little bit of credit or falsehood to Chris Paul, but a lot of other series were not his fault. I mean, the Sun series this year was his fault.
Wait, but James Harden was on that team.
No, I'm talking about 2014 when he was on the Clippers and they lost. They were up 3-1 and then they lost 3 in a row.
I thought you said Rockets.
No, that year was Chris Paul just got hurt.
Yeah.
But this time around, like what I'm saying is Chris Paul gets a bad rep as like a playoff choker.
But that's really James Harden.
But it's really James Harden. James Harden, the stats back.
I mean, you get James Harden and Doc Rivers on the same team. That's not a good look.
He just falls apart. Yeah, right. He just falls apart in big moments in the postseason. And you mix him with Doc Rivers, who he is still riding the coattails of that 2008 championship. I don't know how he still just keep going. He has proven time and time again he cannot coach in the playoffs. But man, like I guess having Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce gets you a lot of credit.
Yeah.
And I mean, James Harden, like, can we talk about that game 6 where he didn't shoot the ball at all?
Turned into Ben Simmons.
He had 4 shots the entire game. And all of them were misses, I think. He literally turned into Ben Simmons. I sent a stat in our chat saying that he had Ben Simmons field goal attempts in the second half of game 7 against the Hawks, 2. James Harden field goal attempts in the second half of game 6 versus the Heat, 2. That's what you traded for. That's what you traded a lot for. Do you know how fucking lucky the Sixers are that they didn't trade Tyrese Maxey for James Harden?
Yeah.
Could you imagine the situation they would be in if they didn't trade, if they traded Tyrese Maxey? They would be in hell. They probably lose to the Raptors. Not even kidding. They probably lose to the Raptors. Tyrese Maxey was like the only one in this series that like gave it his all every night. And you can tell with Joel as well, but Joel can't do everything. Tyrese was going out there and playing his heart out. I fucking love Tyrese Maxey. He's like the only player on the Sixers I like.
Maxey's a beast. I think Joel's going to leave.
Explain.
It's not much to explain. I think he's done.
But he just signed his supermax. But you're going. Yeah, they could go anywhere they want. So 1 year in,
they could they want. I mean, him and Jimmy Butler want to have sex. So.
Well, you saw that tweet. I guarantee you saw that tweet from Joel.
He's
they need a third star.
Yeah.
That they need a third star.
Yeah.
But he's saying that after Miami just beat them. That's so weird.
Yeah, no.
Isn't that weird? Do you think that's weird to say?
Oh, it's 100%.
Like,
but that's what I'm saying. Players just don't give a shit now, dude. They're just like, I want to go where I want to go, which is fair, but it's also stupid.
It's like you just lost that team and you're shit talking them. Why are you shit talking them when you got embarrassed by them?
Yeah.
And your second star completely folded.
Yeah.
You could argue that James Harden played worse than Kyle Lowry in the fucking playoffs.
I mean, Joel kind of peppered James Harden, the presser after the game.
Did he? What did he say?
He was like, yeah, he's, not the player. He didn't say like he's not the player he used to be, but basically just kind of said,
a little
bit kind of like that.
It's embarrassing how this team handles itself. It really is. Like, they do this big trade, and then obviously Harden gets there, and they're hyping it up, and we all just know that I was saying the whole time, we all know what this team is, and that's exactly what they were. I mean, Doc Rivers is their coach, is not going to get them anywhere. James Harden is falling off a cliff right now. We are seeing it live before our eyes. Like what you're talking about with Luka, like not being in shape. That's what James Harden is, and that's what's going to show when you age up. If you're not in shape like that,
he's a free agent, right?
I think he's got a player option, which is like $50 million.
That's good.
And he can sign an extension. They're not paying him $50 million a year. You kidding me?
Yeah, I don't know who would pay him. Like, if he's going to get a max contract. But
they also traded so much to get him.
Yeah.
They might just have to pay.
You got to pull Rams. You got to cut your losses.
You
don't want to be stuck paying a fucking 36-year-old James Harden.
I made that bet with Kurt about the Nugget matching. I made that so easily because I'm so confident in my takes on the Sixers.
To be fair, Joel Embiid getting hurt would kind of just.
I still don't think they win that series.
Oh no, they probably don't
win that series. They're not good enough.
But that kind of just, they had 0% chance at that point.
They just didn't know what to do, and it's like they're relying on Joel for everything. I mean, Matisse Thybulle became a non-factor. Their bench showed how not deep they were. It just. If they have Seth Curry, they might win. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know how this team's going to go for the next few years because it could go sideways really quick or not be sideways anyway. So Sixers suck. I'm always right about the Sixers. That's all I'm going to say.
What about this? You right about Milwaukee, Boston?
I was.
You had Boston in 7?
I did.
Damn. I had Milwaukee in 7, I think.
And I had that with the idea that Chris Middleton was playing. So I picked Boston to win the series with Chris Middleton playing. But Milwaukee showed fight. Without Chris Middleton, they took the Celtics to 7. They were up 3-2 at one point.
You think if Chris Middleton plays it?
I don't think it's a crazy take to think that.
Yeah.
I mean, Milwaukee just their wing depth got stretched thin in this series really badly. And they were trying to rely on guys like Grayson Allen and George Hill to make shots because Giannis was the only one doing anything on offense because Drew Holiday is he's a guy that will just chuck up shots on offense. And he was bad on offense, but he was elite defensively in this series. But this just goes to show that Milwaukee's defense was the best in the postseason. I mean, they completely shut down the Celtics except for Game 7 where Grant Williams hit like every shot ever taken. But Milwaukee, I mean, just not having Chris was too much for them. I don't think there's a lot to talk about with the series. I think if Milwaukee has Chris Middleton, they win the series and probably are in the finals right now because I think they beat the Heat as well. But sometimes luck doesn't go your way. I can't really be critical and be pissed off that Chris Middleton didn't play in the series because last year we won a championship off Kyrie and James Harden not being healthy. I can't really be critical. Man. It happens. Injuries. That's why I think people being critical of the Celtics being in the finals right now because they played Brooklyn without Ben Simmons, they played Milwaukee without Chris Middleton, and then they played Miami with half their roster being beat up. I think that's stupid to be critical of them for that because injuries are a part of the playoffs. It happens. And Milwaukee, even though they were up 3-2 at one point, they had that crazy Game 5 win in Boston. They didn't seal the deal. It happens. I mean, I could take solace in the fact that they probably win the series if their guy was healthy. But once he didn't suit up early on in the series, I just knew he wasn't playing the whole series, and I kind of was just prepared. He hurt his hamstring. But once they lost Game 7, I was over it really quick. I really didn't care that much.
Closer, though.
Yeah,
I thought Giannis would put up a nice fight.
Yeah, but I mean, he was doing everything this whole series. He had a couple 40-pointers this series. He was averaging 34. He averaged 34 this series. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything more from him because when Pat Connaughton's your second most consistent player in the series, you're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. And when you're playing arguably the best team in basketball and you're playing the best team in basketball over the past few months, you're probably not going to win. And that didn't happen. It sucks. I'm over it. They'll be back next year. Boston's really great, though. We can talk about them in this next series, but I just have to say this about Boston. This team is so fucking great defensively, and offensively, but I absolutely hate how they play basketball. They just grift. That's all they do. You always see you don't know what grifting is? It's playing for the fouls.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the NBA, man.
But Grant Williams and Marcus Smart always will fall on their asses. Jason Tatum always grifts for fouls when he's taking shots. It's like these guys are elite defensive players. I mean, when you watch the series against Milwaukee, Giannis struggled most against Grant Williams when Grant Williams would stand up against him. But then in some games, Grant Williams would rely on flopping his ass off. And he would get pissed because Giannis would score because he fell on the floor after one little push. It's like, guys, you're talented enough to play this incredible defense, but you rely on such shitty tactics. And I don't get that. And it pisses me off. That's the way the NBA is trending. That's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, the NBA is kind of sackless. But it's like if like 80% of it, if you play in sport and 80% of your colleagues are doing something that's giving them advantage, you're gonna do it too. That's the unfortunate truth. Like that's kind of why it's stupid.
But I mean, Golden State, Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. I have nothing to say.
Yeah, there's not much to say. I mean,
other than Kevon Looney's the GOAT.
Yeah,
the better team won.
Yeah, Golden State's just better.
We can talk about Miami, Boston really quick too. I mean, both these teams suck. They were bad in this series. This entire conference finals sucked. Every game was a blowout.
Yeah.
Every single one, except for Game 6 against Boston, Miami, when Jimmy Butler had 47.
Yeah. I mean, Game 7 wasn't a blowout, but it also wasn't too close.
The Heat brought it within like 3 at one point, and then Boston.
It was a 2-point game at the end, and Jimmy tried to take that 3. Which I don't hate the shot. I think it's fine.
Don't either, but Jimmy Butler is one of the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA. He's worse at shooting the 3 than like Anthony Davis and Giannis. That should tell you everything about how bad of a 3-point shooter he is. But I mean, I don't hate the shot. I just hated how early he took it.
Yeah, I think he was feeling himself.
His team had no chance at an offensive rebound because it was in transition.
Yeah.
So he was feeling himself. I understand that. He played every minute of that game. So
yeah, I love Jimmy. Jimmy's a beast.
I love Jimmy Butler. I mean, I hate I love certain teams in sports, but they get ruined by fan bases. The Miami Heat are a perfect example of an NBA team that I would really like if their fan base wasn't a piece of fucking shit.
Zach
I hate
Jackson, piece of shit.
Yeah, they're pieces of shit. Fuck them. But the Heat fan base sucks. And I love Jimmy Butler. I like Bam. I like Kyle Lowry. I love PJ Tucker. But their fan base makes me hate this team. And then also with Boston, we all know how bad Boston fans are. Everyone in the world knows that. But Jason Tatum, we can talk about how great Jason Tatum is. He's the next superstar. I mean, he's the next Kawhi Leonard.
He's proved me wrong.
He can make any shot in any tough moments. He hits dagger after dagger all the time. I mean, in game 6 against Milwaukee, he hit so many threes in that fourth quarter to put the game away. In game 7 against Miami, he was the one that hit the mid-ranger and the three-pointer to like get that lead to 13 in the fourth quarter to like kind of pull them away. But I will say for the game 7 in Miami, that Max Strus overturned 3 is going to haunt Heat fans for a long time.
That's not how sports work, though. Like you don't turn. Like I saw so many things that were like the Heat lost by whatever it was 4 points, and they had to overturn 3 4 minutes prior, whatever it was. Like,
I mean, personally, do you think that 6 possessions after a play happens that they can overturn a possession that happened 6 plays beforehand?
At the end of the day,
I think after 2, it should be set in stone, personally.
But thinking about it logistically, if you were to watch a replay and you can say that this happened one way, like I think you're being cheated of the game if you don't overturn it.
But the thing is, it wasn't definitive.
No, I agree. It definitely wasn't definitive
from the angle that we
situation,
got. Yeah.
It is a little sketch. Like it is weird. But if it was definitive, I think it should be able to be changed, even if it's 12 possessions later. But at the end of the day, that was definitely really fucking close.
Yeah.
So whatever was called on the floor, I think should have just stayed. But
it's the butterfly effect. He misses the 3 instead of not making it. Like he misses the 3 instead of making it. They get an offensive rebound and get 2 instead of 3.
Yeah.
That could happen. He steps out of bounds and they call it initially. That resets the game, and then they got to play.
Oh yeah,
the Celtics go into a different set offensively, and they don't make a bucket after.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he makes that 3, like we win the game. Like you can't say yes and you can't say no. And maybe if he
he did make that 3. That's the thing. We
know
how the game played out with it.
Counted.
Yes. Well, the Heat would be up 1. Yeah. If it counted.
But then, like, who knows? Maybe they play differently in their offensive sets, and it's actually worse for them. And then, who the fuck knows?
You never know. You never know with sports.
And you do never know.
We always say, you never know.
We do say that a lot.
We do say that a lot.
Because we don't know anything.
We hate what ifs. We hate what ifs here. We hate it.
That's all sports are. So it's like, fuck it.
It's true.
That's all we talk about.
Even though we just talked about the Nets being the biggest what if team in NBA history.
Yeah.
All right. NBA Finals.
Yeah. People are not excited about the finals, and I think it's going to be pretty good.
I think it is too. I actually really like this matchup. I really like this matchup. Golden State versus Boston.
Who I think is going to win?
I don't either. I'm going to go with, because Boston struggled against a Miami team whose offense was absolute shit. Miami's offense was just Jimmy Butler running everything.
Yeah.
And the rest of the players not being able to do anything. And then also they just played elite defense. And that's basically what they faced against Milwaukee too. It was just Giannis doing everything and then his team not being able to do anything offensively, but they played elite defense. Boston was struggling against those teams. But Golden State isn't as strong of a defensive team, but they're still a great defensive team. But Golden State's offense is fucking beautiful basketball. I love watching Golden State. I was a closet Warriors fan during their 5 years of title runs.
That's called a bandwagoner.
Because I was a Bucks fan, but
you appreciated
the Bucks weren't good. Yeah, because I'm a Steph Curry and Klay Thompson dick rider.
I
love Draymond and stuff like that. And they have
I hate Draymond.
they have Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney, who are from Milwaukee, so of course I love them. And this whole team I just really like. But they play beautiful offense. Watching the Warriors play offense is just pure art. It's so beautiful. So I'm gonna go with Golden State. I'm gonna go Golden State in 6. But I think this series will not be all blowouts like this entire conference finals for both conferences were. I think Golden State wins in 6.
I might go Golden State in 7.
I would love a 7-game series.
I would love that as well.
Does Steph Curry win his first finals MVP?
I think
there's no Kevin Durant to win it over him.
Yeah, I mean,
but Iggy won it that one year because he guarded LeBron amazingly.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see Draymond winning it.
No,
I don't see.
I mean, if the Warriors
it.
do win, like the thing is, like Steph,
Kevon Looney might. He's the greatest player of all time.
Steph, like I could see him having like a couple bad games, and that hurts. That it's tough. If you have like 2 bad shooting performances, he scores like 17. He's gonna have some games. He's gonna score like 17 points. He's gonna shoot like 35% from the field.
He's
that's
gonna have
tough.
Smart on him the whole series.
Yeah, I think he's gonna win it though. I also think like there's a little bit of narrative from the voters or whatever you want to count.
To finally get him.
Yeah,
one.
how do they even determine it? Like who votes on it?
It's like 10 people. It's like 10 writers, and they get to vote.
Yeah, I if the Warriors win, I'd be shocked if he didn't win it.
You never know.
There's going to be no. I don't think there's.
Wiggins has been great.
Wiggins has been good. I just don't think like you're never going to see like a consistent 30-point scorer from the Warriors. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Curry. Unless Clay goes ballistic, but other than that, yeah.
I think Jason Tatum's going to have a great series. Also, I just want to bring that up. But
no question.
It's gonna be a fun series. It's gonna be a fun series.
I think it's gonna be good. I like it. A lot of people are giving it hate. I think it's actually really good.
Hopefully it saves the whole playoffs because this playoffs has been pretty awful.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Miami because I love Jimmy. I wish Jimmy would.
I agree.
Want a ring, but I think Boston. I mean, Boston deserves it. Ever since they turned that around at the end, like midway through the season or a couple months left, they've been one of the best teams in basketball. So, and
they've been to a lot of conference finals and haven't made it to the actual championship.
They're like the Sixers, but they actually got over the hump and they're good and they're dysfunctional.
And they're not forcing any moves.
Yeah,
they're not overreacting.
It's all homegrown, which you got to respect. So,
exactly.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode. Hope you guys did enjoy. Podcasts will be back. I know you guys missed us, but with that being said, until next time, goodbye.